Hi, the question I'd like to talk about today is what are HARPTA and FERPTA? It always reminds me, if you're old enough, the Muppet speaker, HARPTA FERPTA. Just sounds kind of funny. But if you are a resident of the state of Hawaii and you are going to sell your property, listen no more. Don't worry about this anymore. As long as you are a resident, you are not subject to HARPTA or FERPTA. If you are not a resident of the state of Hawaii, there are some things that I'd broadly like to talk about. I am not an expert in this area, but I get a lot of questions about it. So I thought we could kind of go over it a little bit, and then you could do a little more digging if you need to. So what does HARPTA stand for? It is the Hawaii Real Property Tax Act. And what that does is it's a withholding. So escrow during the course of the transaction will withhold 7.25% of the sale. It's not the proceeds, it's the sale of the property. And they will hold that at closing. So if you are not a resident, be prepared to have that withheld. And again, it's handled in escrow, so escrow handles all of the funds. So what that withholding does for the state of Hawaii is it makes sure that it covers any taxes you may owe to the state of Hawaii from the time either that you had lived here or that you owned the property here. The state of Hawaii is covering their bases. So at some point, you may be exempt from HARPTA. There is a form online at hawaii.gov/tax. There's an N-288, there's an N-289. You may be subject to an exemption if you don't have a lot of proceeds coming from the sale, if you happen to be a military member who was not a resident and you moved off island because of orders. There are some exemptions in there that you can look at. So something to definitely look into. And the one thing not to do is confuse this with capital gains. Capital gains is a tax. It's a completely separate thing, and it has to do with how long you lived in the property and how much gain you had on a property. It's a tax. Again, HARPTA is a withholding. So if you talk to your accountant, even if that 7.25% is withheld, you may be able to get at least some or most of it back in the following year when you file your taxes if you don't owe the state of Hawaii any additional money. And just jumping back to the exemptions really quickly too, you want to make sure you file that early. So if you know you're not a state of Hawaii resident or there's a question and you need to file an exemption waiver, you want to get on that early in the process. You don't want to wait until the end. Because then that can either hold up your transaction or you're going to have to pay the funds and then have to deal with it after the fact. So more info, go to hawaii.gov/tax and you'll find more things there. And it's HARPTA, HARPTA, the Hawaii Real Property Tax Act. So in addition to that, if you are not only not a state of Hawaii resident, but you are not a U.S. resident, you could be subject to FERPTA. So that's the Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. So if you're subject to FERPTA, you're probably also subject to HARPTA. So again, it's a withholding of the real estate proceeds. No, it is the withholding of proceeds from the sale of a property if you are not a resident of the United States. And that is 15% of the sale price. So it's a hefty amount. But again, and it could be added to HARPTA, which is that 7.25%. So talk to your realtor, talk to your escrow agent, talk to your accountant. Those are all really important people. Make sure if you're subject to withholdings, if you are and they are withheld, try to figure out if you can get the money back the following year when you actually file taxes, when the state of Hawaii Department of Tax will look to see if you owe any other taxes to the state of Hawaii before returning those withholdings. So again, a 1031 exchange, just as an aside, might be another option so that those funds aren't withheld. You can transfer your money from one property to another property. So that's another option in addition to an exemption. But HARPTA and FERPTA are withholdings the state of Hawaii takes to make sure that out-of-state residents and out-of-country residents make sure that they pay their Hawaii taxes. So hopefully it was a good overview. I know it's kind of general. There's more specific information online, and you can always talk to a professional. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Aloha.